Hey, my name is Kath, and I've been living in this van since 2021. And let me welcome you to building the best small van ever. Maybe. Roof deck and solar panels.
Big day ahead. Let's go. I'm going to try and start installing my roof rack. My plan right now is to have some gutter clamps that run along the top of the roof, and then I'm going to have aluminum piping that goes horizontally across the top of the van, and then vertically I'm going to have some cedar planks. So I measured it out with this tape. I'm going to have this portion from here to here as deck to relax, and then from here back I'm going to have my two solar panels sit on each side of my MaxxAir fan. That way my solar panels will be mounted onto the deck. I don't have to worry about drilling so many holes in my roof, and then the rest can be used for just relaxing. So let's get started.
So I went ahead and put the gutter clamps together per the instructions and then mounted them onto the gutter of the van and put the aluminum on to make sure that everything fit. When you mount gutter clamps, you're actually supposed to pinch the gutter quite hard, and that's what you could see me doing in that last video, is making sure that it really bit in. Now we are sizing the aluminum. And after that, I laid the boards across everything just to get an idea of what it would look like and check everything out.
Hello. Please forgive the lines. I have been sanding. So what I'm working on right now, which is the next step of the van, a pretty important step because I can't move forward and do anything else until this is all done, is preparing these boards. So my plan is to have a roof deck, and the front portion of my roof deck will be just for relaxing and chilling. It'll just be a deck for hanging out. The back portion of the van has the MaxxAir fan in the middle, and then on each side of the MaxxAir fan I'm going to have these boards going towards the back of the van, and then I'm going to have my solar panels sit on top of these boards. So that way the solar panels are raised above the MaxxAir fan. I don't want to have any issue with a shadow being cast on the solar panels by the MaxxAir fan whenever the MaxxAir fan is open. So raising the solar panels onto these boards should help with that. And then of course I'll just have a deck, which will be great. So I can't do anything with the electricity or the solar panels until I get these boards done and get the deck on, and I can't do anything else in the van with the walls and the roof until all of the electricity is in. So right now what is getting me is these are cedar boards. They are very lightweight to try and not add additional weight to the van. My gas mileage is already atrocious, so I don't want to do anything else unnecessarily to diminish that further. So these are cedar boards. They're 1x4s, which 1x4s are not actually 1 inch by 4 inch. They're 3/4 inch by 3.5 inches. And what I'm concerned about is if these boards are strong enough for the roof. Mainly cedar is a very strong and lightweight wood. I've followed some other tutorials online who have used the same materials as me. It just seems that like these cedar boards have like knots, and then they have some like splitting, as you can see. And I really I don't know how they'll hold up. I just don't want to end up doing it again. So I filled these knots and any like grooves with wood filler. I am sanding them down, and then I'm going to be putting some spar urethane on it. Spar urethane is actually what I've been using on the van. I often say polyurethane if I say polyurethane. I'm using spar urethane. The difference is that polyurethane is mainly used for inside, and spar urethane is used for outside. The additional benefit of spar urethane is that it is UV protectant. um, so that way they're more protected by the sun. Being on the roof, and then everything else in the van is more protected by the sun. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, let's get started, or let's keep going. I didn't tape any of the sanding for all the other boards because who really needs to see me sand that much?
If anyone needs to be convinced to wear their PPE whenever they're sanding and doing these different things, here is my warning for you. While I was building the van, I ended up having to go in to get a bunch of liver testing done, and I found out that whatever you touch through your skin is actually absorbed by and cleansed by your liver. So if you are working with harsh chemicals, and actually even if you're breathing in things, all of these toxins are being cleansed out of your body by your liver, and you are putting a lot of strain on your liver if you are letting them touch your bare skin and breathing them in without a mask. So make sure that you wear those, or you might have problems, and that wouldn't be good. I'm fine though. Just wanted to let you guys know. Hello. Good morning. It's a mess over here. There's too much stuff in here. There are many reasons why I loved building a van. One of the reasons was how fulfilling it was to create something with your own two hands. When you start to create, you will see that you are far more capable than you could have imagined. That creation, though, will often lead you to doing odd things, like balancing on a pile of trash in the back of a trailer while grabbing a 40-pound ladder off a wall. One of the biggest blessings I had in building my van was having access and use of this barn. Lined with tools, it would seem that I had the world at my disposal. But that's not much of anything when you don't know what to do or how to use any of it. Mostly, while building the van, I used only these tools: a cordless drill with different attachments and bits, a jigsaw, a circular saw, and a hand sander. So, if you are ever thinking about building something or building your own van, just know that you do not need to have all of this at your disposal. There are many stories where people have built their entire van in a Home Depot parking lot. This is what we have going on for today. This contraption here I created. I am trying to install the roof deck today, and the roof cannot support my weight, so I went ahead and connected 2 ladders and a beam across. It's enough to support my weight, but really I put my feet on the roof so that way my weight is a little more distributed without it being completely on the board. Whenever I did a trial run of the roof deck, whenever the boards were just laying across the aluminum bent and the boards bent, which made it almost touch the roof. So what I decided to do to protect the roof is I got these rubber stoppers here. I'm going to insert them under the aluminum, and I put a bolt through the bottom of them, and I covered the bolt with some silicone. So that way when if the aluminum dips down to the roof, this rubber stopper will hit the roof, and it'll stop the aluminum from hitting the roof and hopefully protect the roof from any damage that could happen from having people up on the roof and the aluminum bending and things like that. Do you remember what I said about doing odd things while creating? Well, here's another one. I put these long wooden boards across 2 ladders so that way I would have somewhere to sit while I was working on the roof. I had these rubber stoppers where I drilled a recess in the bottom, and then I put stainless steel bolts through the bottom up to the top, and then they sat underneath the aluminum tubing and were bolted. That way, whenever I pressed down, you can see that I went into the rib of the roof and made sure the deck did not actually scrape. After I brought my cedar boards that are now coated with the spar urethane up onto the roof and I lined them up, whenever I was drilling through the board and through the aluminum, I would take one of my old wood boards and I would put it underneath the aluminum to make sure that I didn't accidentally make a hole in my roof. On the roof where I put the rubber stoppers, there's a bolt coming up and a nut, which is interfering with, there's dust on here, with the wood boards. So what I did was I rubbed some permanent marker on the bolts, and then I pressed these boards down onto where the bolts are. And now I'm gonna drill a recess here, and here, and here, so that way hopefully this board will lay nice and flat. One of the funny things that I kept running into whenever I was trying to drill these recesses in the cedar was the wood was starting to smoke and catch on fire because it was getting too hot. And I kept having to stop. You could see some of the smoke coming off of the wood. That's because it's too hot and it's about to catch on fire. Now I'm back on the roof and I am using one of the bolts as a spacer. And then this black box helps me make sure that I am drilling straight down instead of at an angle whenever I am drilling through the wood and through the aluminum. So that way my bolts are not off center. I would go from the top and then down to the back. This way I would make sure that everything was spaced correctly. I was also working from the center outward, so that way I would have an even amount of boards on each side of the center. Because my MaxxAir fan is in the middle, I cut these center boards to be a shorter length. And then on each side, you can see the boards are longer, and that is so my solar panels can sit on top of them. After I marked all of the boards with this blue tape and I wrote numbers on them so I would keep them in the right order, and then I had to remove each one of them so that way I can put the center ones back down and reach the nut that was on the underside of the aluminum to tighten the bolts down and through the wood. I ended up making these recesses because it was difficult for me to find bolts that were long enough to go through the wood, through the aluminum, and hold on to the nut without being so long that they ended up scraping on my roof. I think we went back and forth to the store at least 10 times this day. And once again, I highly suggest if you ever build a van or anything else like this to live very close to a Home Depot, Lowe's, or Ace Hardware because you will likely be going to the store many, many times in a single day. This is what I've done. I've completed the roof rack except for two boards. These two boards were a little more complicated because this is where the gutter clamps are. So right here you have the gutter clamps. You have these two bolts right here, and then you need the piece of wood to lay on top of the bolts. Not only that, but the gutter clamp has 1, 2, and 3 holes. 3 holes. And I need to drill through the wood, through the aluminum, and then through the hole, the third hole that's here in the middle, to attach this last piece of wood. So if my plan works out well, what I've done is I took the board that I have, I laid it on top of the spot and aligned it where I wanted it to go. I took one of these mallet hammers and it hit the wood, so the bolt would leave an indent in the wood. And then I went ahead and took my tool that creates recesses in the wood and I did these here, you can see on this one. So I drilled these recesses here, and then in the middle of the recesses I drilled this hole that will hopefully be where that third middle hole is in the gutter clamp, so that way I can insert the bolt through this hole, drill through the aluminum, and then drill through the gutter clamp. Cross fingers, we'll see. So let's finish this up.
Hello. So today I'm going to be trying to mount the solar panels onto the roof. I'll be drilling a hole through the roof for the cable entry unit and attaching the solar panels to the deck that I just installed and finished. This is one of those things that seem very straightforward. Attach the brackets, drill holes in the deck to attach it to the deck, connect the cables in a series, which would be just making one of the red wires go straight into the cable housing unit, a black wire go from one solar panel to the next solar panel, and then from the second solar panel into the cable housing unit, and then having them in a series would make the voltage higher compared to a parallel, which would make the amperage higher. A series is less complicated, it needs less wiring, which is the reason why I'm doing it, if I understand correctly from everything I've read, because I'm going to always remind everyone, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to be, right now, taking these mounts and attaching them here. I'm going to have the mounts facing the front and the back of the vehicle. I believe that this would be better for just having them stay on whenever you're driving, because the wind will be coming this way, and then there won't be any lift. It'll be held where the wind is coming from. So you just need to, the kit that I bought came with the packet of bolts, washers, and nuts to attach these to the panels. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the reason why I'm doing this is I have more space on the deck in front of the panel and behind the panel rather than on the sides. The width of the deck boards that are longer is the same width as the actual solar panels. So I'll be attaching these. The kit also came with, touching them this way, I was holding it the wrong way. The kit that I got also came with some self-tapping screws and some plastic washers that they intended for you to use to mount this onto the actual roof of your vehicle. Because I'm mounting it on wood and I want it to be secure, I went and got the same size bolts with some washers and nylon lock nuts, everything in stainless steel, so it is rust proof or resistant and stronger. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm still just like, it has to be more than this. I have to be doing something wrong, but I guess we'll see. The good thing is that if you do anything wrong, you can almost fix anything wrong that you do. And so these were the self-tapping bolts or screws that they gave in the package, and this is what I got instead, so I can drill a hole, put it through the wood with a washer on each end, and then
a nylon lock nut. So that way any type of rattling or vibration will hopefully cause the nut not to come off. The plan is to drill a hole in the roof for the cable entry unit right here, next to the MaxxAir fan. It'll be at the end of the short boards of the deck, and before the MaxxAir fan, the cable entry unit should be right here. Everything in here is clean, and I don't want any more shards of metal, because anytime shards of metal go anywhere and it lands on other pieces of metal, it can cause rust. What I'm going to try to do is tape this bag here where, sorry for the donkey, there are donkeys next door. I'm gonna try and tape it here so that way when I drill through the roof down, hopefully all of the shards will be caught in the bag and they won't go everywhere and I don't have to clean the entire van again. We'll see if this works. Anything to keep it up. Okay. Stay. I'm using this tape to mark off the solar panel brackets. That way, whenever I drill my holes, the solar panels don't move and then end up being crooked on the roof. I'm still using this same black box to make sure that my holes go straight down, because I had a big problem with drilling all of my holes crooked. And now I'm connecting the solar panel cables in a series and marking off the roof where I want to drill and mount the housing for the wires. I started with a smaller drill bit and then a larger drill bit, and then used the jigsaw to drill the hole out. And then I shaved down any of the sharp edges with these files. I would say if you are going to do this, make your hole a bit bigger. I was far too conservative because I was worried about making a large hole that was unnecessary. I think it's actually better to make a larger hole so that way there's no chance of the cables rubbing against the metal. I ended up going and adding some protection to the cables so that way if they did rub against the metal, they would be protected from abrasion. But I would suggest that you make your hole bigger than I did. Now I am putting that housing down in the blue square that I marked off, and I am holding it down now at this moment with some butyl tape and zip tying the cables to the aluminum tubing that is holding on the roof deck. And that's it for now, guys. I added this clip because I wanted to show you how I got onto my roof for many, many years whenever I would sit up there and enjoy the sun. I would roll down my window on the driver's side and then I would just crawl through the window and step on the door. And that's how I got up there. I'll catch you guys next time. Please like and subscribe.